All right, guys, keeping right along with the content. It's your boy Foots here. The NFL draft is over. It came and it went, and it's crazy just how fast. It's like, you're going up a roller coaster, you're going up an airplane, you're taking off, and just like that, you're landing. And it's like nothing else until the season starts. But optimism, but a good feeling, but these are your guys now, and you got to make it work. And that's what I'm here to talk about. So I'm doing my annual NFC East Grades, and really this is just to get you guys here because this won't be grades. It'll more so be a recap and what teams are trying to do. Now, let me make this very clear. The picks are the picks, and how we grade them and how we stacked our board and how scouts stacked their board is what it is. But we don't always know the plan that the teams have for these players. And I think that's very important to keep in mind. There's going to be coaches and scouts who don't agree on certain things with how these guys are used, and that's why you saw players picked where they were. That's why you saw players fall. That's why you saw maybe athletes be overdrafted. There will be players that coaches say, give me this guy, I can clean his technique up, and we can do this, and we can do that. The truth is, scouts, media scouts, they don't have as much information as these teams do, and they definitely don't know the plan for each team. Like, I'm in the NFC East, but I don't know, the Commanders' plan or the Giants' plan. I'm just evaluating what I see from as a fan and as a fan who really follows the game at a high level, but I still don't know the plan. So without further ado, we're going to talk about the Commanders first. And this is not to bash anybody's team. I really want to dig deep in to see how they made this draft happen and what their plan was. So they go Jahan Dotson. They go Mathis in the second. Questionable pick there. Brian Robinson in the third, love the value. I had a third on Brian Robinson. Percy Butler, love the value there. Sam Howell, if he was talked about as a first-round pick, you get him all the way in the fifth. Makes sense. Cole Turner, Nevada, really good pass-catching tight end. Chris Paul, guard, Tulsa, developmental guy, and then Christian Holmes. So when you look at this Washington Commanders roster, I'm not mad at the pieces that they added, and you guys know how I feel about Jahan Dotson. For those of you guys who are new to the channel, I'm his biggest cheerleader. I just think that if you're going to trade away, because they traded back to get the extra third, I wouldn't have traded away from Kyle Hamilton, or I would have went one of the Washington corners. I look at this team's depth chart, and I like Benjamin St-Juste and I like Kendall Fuller, but I see that I could upgrade my secondary if need be. Now, the Brian Robinson pick and the way that the Commanders want to play football, the way that, that Rivera wants to play football, he wants to run the ball and play defense. So the Brian Robinson pick is probably my favorite pick of this draft. The questionable one, though, is how many Alabama defensive tackles are the Commanders, Skins, Washington football team going to draft? Like, at some point, and if we're being honest, were really either of them really like dudes? Like, they were good, they had spurts, but like, are they perennial Pro Bowlers? No, they weren't. So at some point you need to look at that and say, if I'm just going to keep getting run stuffing defensive tackles, it doesn't really make sense. I like this draft. I just didn't love it, but I do like the Dotson pick, and I do like the Brian Robinson pick, and then great value for Sam Howell. Eventually could be your starting quarterback. All right, Philadelphia Eagles. And you have to marry this pick with Philly also, getting the receiver A.J. Brown from the Titans. Now, for everybody who went crazy about that pick, we need to keep in mind, that pickup, the acquisition, you paid him a lot of money. He only had 800 yards last year, and he was mentally checked out of football for a second. You get Jordan Davis, and then you get Nakobe Dean III. You get Cam Jurgens, who I have issues with Cam Jurgens' strength. But I'm not mad at it. Jordan Davis will come in and basically work to replace Fletcher Cox, so that makes sense. And then Nakobe Dean. This is the one. Kyron Johnson, edge Kansas, and then Grant Calcaterra from SMU. But let's talk about Nakobe Dean. I'm going to take up most of my time talking about Dean. He fell for a couple reasons. The injury red flags, but then also I think that teams believe in, and he has every opportunity to prove teams wrong. But I think that teams believe that as good as he was, when you look at all the athletes around him and you look at the way his game projects to the league, is he an every down linebacker in the NFL? Also, how does he do when guards and bigger linemen get on him? I think Philly, if they hit, they hit. But I just don't know if I would have went DB, could have went corner. Slay is good, but he's older. And then the truth is, Philly is setting themselves up to say, hey, if Jalen isn't the guy, okay, if Hurts isn't the guy, we're gonna trade up probably and go get one of these guys coming out next year because the quarterback class is much stronger. I like the draft paired with the free agency moves, and they still have draft capital for next year, so it makes sense. The New York Giants, if nothing else, if I was grading these drafts, they would get an A+ because you got Evan Hill and Kayvon Thibodeau in the same draft. There were 2 top 5 players on my board, and you get them in the same draft. Sign me up. Evan Neal, probably the cleanest overall tackle. There are things that some of the other tackles do better, but he's clean overall as far as he does pretty much everything well. And then obviously Kayvon Thibodeau, which I thought it was just ridiculous that Aiden Hutchinson was drafted over Kayvon Thibodeau. I know that he may have character issues or whatever the case may have you, but there's no way that you're not going to tell me that Aiden Hutchinson is a better player than Kayvon Thibodeau. He's just not. The Wan'Dale Robinson pick, and I'll go through these: Wan'Dale Robinson, Josh Azuda, Cordell Flott, Daniel Bellinger, Dane Belton, Michael McFadden, DJ Davidson, Marcus McKeithen, and then Darian Beaverson. So Beavers probably was the best value because I had a 3rd-round grade on him. You get him all the way in the 6th. But then the Wan'Dale Robinson pick just screamed reach. Like you're trying to get rid of Kadarius Toney to draft another Kadarius Toney. I don't know. Daniel Jones is clearly on the hot seat. I would have got him a more sure thing, a receiver. Jalen Tolbert probably would have been my option over Wan'Dale Robinson. I know he's speed. I know he's twitchy. But I just don't know how he's going to hold up in the NFL game. So many times with these quicker receivers, they just get lost in offenses because they can only do so many things and not physical enough to handle the NFL game, especially year 1. So I like the Giants draft. Actually, I love the Giants draft because, you get the 2 top 5 talents. It's kind of hard to mess this up. But then they did have some reaches in the middle rounds. Even the Cordell Flott pick, I'm just like, there were other options there on the board. But then Michael McFadden is good value as well, and I think that he'll be a good player for the Giants. I think that he'll overachieve. And then obviously the Cowboys: Tyler Smith, Sam Williams, Jalen Tolbert, Jake Ferguson, Matt Waletzko, Deron Bland, Damone Clark, John Ridgeway, and Devin Harper. You guys know how I feel about this draft. I've talked about it ad nauseum. I think the Cowboys had a plan to get more physical. I said that draft day 1. They did get more physical. And I believe that they had to take Tyler Smith where they did because guess what? You weren't going to have a guard that was day 1 ready. And I think people look at the T behind his name, where it says position, they look at tackle. Tyler Smith is going to be an NFL guard, and I think he's going to be a very successful one. Right now, you don't need him to be, pass-setting king. You need him to be the best run blocker that he can be, and he's really, really good at that. And so I think that's what you're asking him to do. And so that's why this draft, to me, makes a lot of sense. And then Jalen Tolbert was the best value to me. Like I said, I had him over a couple receivers that went before him. And I think what shocked me was just how high John Mechie went, because I believe that overall, like doing and playing all 3 receiver positions, I think that Tolbert is a better receiver than John Mechie. I think that Mechie probably works better out of the slot. But Tolbert, he's bigger, he's more physical, he has the jump ball ability, and he's smooth. He's a very smooth route runner. And he doesn't waste a lot of time getting to his spots. And so that's really what I liked about Tolbert. Best value, definitely Damone Clark. If he can come back and give you anything after the injury, this year will maybe be a redshirt year. Jerry has come out and said that he may play. But it'll probably be more like of a redshirt year. If Damone Clark can get you anything, him going in the 5th with a 2nd-round grade on him, wore 18 at LSU, you could be in really, really good shape. I love the Cowboys draft, and I know that they have a plan, and they, Mike McCarthy basically told on himself and was like, look, we're looking at the playoff game, and we're not happy with how we played football. And I'm not mad at him for that, because I'm not happy with how they play football. They got pushed around. I think that Tyler Smith adds that attitude. I think that John Ridgway adds that attitude. I think that Matt Waletzko adds that attitude. If you want to talk about somebody who could possibly be your left tackle at some point, you're looking at him in Matt Waletzko. Go watch the Senior Bowl, man. I mean, he's not the biggest mauling run blocker, but he gets the job done. So anyway, this is my recap. I won't call it grades, but this is how I recapped the NFC East. I hope you guys enjoy. Share this video around. A lot more content is on the way. It's your boy Foots. As always, thank you guys for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Peace.